Hi everyone, my name's Ashanti McIntosh. I'm the Head of Acquisitions for Studiocanal UK.
Hi everybody, my name is Caroline Hennigan. I'm the Programme Director at Broadway Cinema in Nottingham.
Hello everyone, my name is Bennett, McGhee. I'm an independent producer and co-founder of the company Home.
Thanks everyone, and I'm Ben Luxford. I'm the head of audiences for the BFI, and this year have also had to quickly become head of the Culture Recovery Fund for the BFI as well. So this session I've called Back to Business because there's all year we've been talking about that point where we get back to business, where actually business has been continuing throughout the year anyway. So we've all had to work differently this year, and I think there's that sense still that everything's going to get back to normal, but we've been working differently. We've learned some new things. We've done things in a way that we might not have done before. So it's that case of what's going to stick around? What have we learned that we're going to keep and actually adapt our businesses and our minds to in terms of how we finance films, how audiences see films, and how we who we make them for as well. All of this will be covered by these esteemed colleagues of mine, and what they've learned in their businesses throughout the year as well. So a big question I just want to kick off with, and anyone really can take this, is that idea of, the big question: what have you learned this year that will inform the way you run businesses in the future and the way that you go about things? What's your big takeout? It's a big question, sorry.
I guess I can start. I think from Studiocanal's perspective, a big learning for the business has been just the resilience of our catalogue and just how important it has been in allowing us to stay afloat, as it were, as a distributor. We've got over 4,000 titles in our catalogue across our worldwide Studiocanal footprint. And from a UK perspective, it's just been really interesting to see the ways that the team has been able to dig into that well and pull out titles that really satisfy audiences' needs and desires for nostalgia and comfort watching this period, whether it be, the reissues of Breathless or Total Recall or Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I think it's just really given us the opportunity to say that whilst we may have had to pause our theatrical releases, we still have ways to maximize the content that we've invested in previously. And I think it's really allowed the team to get really creative as well from a marketing standpoint in terms of how they can really push content back into the sort of audience sphere, I would say.
That is really interesting because there was a feeling for quite a while that catalogue was kind of done. There wasn't really a value on it. So actually, in these times, knowing that you've already got a load of films that are already made I'm sure has proved quite useful. Caroline, you look like you had something to add in there.
Well, absolutely with catalogue, and we've noticed it for a long time, in our sector, that there really is an audience for that. And so this is really highlighted. But there are kind of three main things that this period has thrown up for me. One of them is the incredible level of collaboration that there has been in the sector between cinemas and distributors. It's been really positive and gives me great hope for the future. But there are other things that have been going on as well that have been important that I think impact the way we think about our business. One is the massive issue around Black Lives Matter this year and the growth of it into an international movement and how that is going to impact on the way we run our businesses. There's also a level about working environments. I think a toxic working environment in a cinema was talked about a lot, and I think the kind of solution to this in a way comes through how we approach running our businesses in the future, how we revisit our mission and our vision and our values and translate them into real action about equal opportunities. And we've never been given a time to stop before, never in the history. You know, I don't think it even stopped in the war, but somehow this has stopped, and it's given us that period of time to take stop and reflect, and we really need to use it to make things better.
Yeah, I don't feel like I ever got to stop, to be honest, Caroline.
Yeah,
but,
well, for some of us, yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, you know, in this session, I'm kind of, you know, naturally gone quite towards like the business response, but you can't separate, obviously, the business to the, you know, to the emotional, to the political. You know, everything's connected. How do you think you'll be responding to those political matters that you mentioned? You know, importantly, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, well, we've really taken this time to look at our mission and our vision and our values, and how that really relates to, you know, equal opportunities and recruitment and good management practice, because I think it's all connected. You know, you have to make it all work. So we've taken the opportunity to look inwards, because constantly we're looking outwards, you know, audiences, stakeholders, all of that, which is really important because we don't exist without that. But it's all built on the platform of looking inwards too, and making sure that that's working right. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think about management as well, I think there are some clear learnings for this industry around the need to focus more on management. You know, management skills, I think, is something we're going to have to take forward, you know, and ensure that everybody takes seriously as well, to ensure that staff are looked after and know that they're being looked after as well. Bennett, you got anything to add at this point? Because if not, don't worry, I'm going to come to you.
I mean, yeah, just it's not so much the business that, like, I mean, from my point of view, you know, we're still in the business of you know, finding material, developing it, and producing it, and obviously the pandemic has got in the way of, but not stopped, production. And actually, what I saw in, when was it, the end of March, was a great kind of like industry coming together. A great community, you know, particularly a community of producers who got together to kind of work it all out. And I knew that to be the case, but I hadn't seen it put into practice. You know, it was kind of you know, superheroes being assembled and trying to work it out. And obviously it wasn't just producers, wider community. I think that was really great, and just the kind of, you know, that great problem solving, and the kind of the speed at which workflows came through, so that when people could go back to work and shoot, you know, it happened quite, yeah, it happened very well organized. And, you know, the number of people I've spoken to, producers, directors, you know, other technicians, crew on set, who have, you know, like, who are back at work is really great. And that's not to dismiss the kind of, you know, it's hit a lot of people very hard, but I'm heartened by the resilience of the industry. And I think that's backed up by, you know, there's a wider conversation in this, but it's backed up by the amount of money that, you know, the streamers, the broadcasters, finances are putting in, you know, and yeah, for me that's really, really heartening. So I'm trying to find all the positives in this situation, and there are lots as well.
Have you shot anything this year, Bennett? Have you shot anything under the COVID guidelines yet?
Call me out. No, I haven't been one of those people. No, I mean, it's I was involved in a couple of things as an EP, and you know, that stung. You know, it stung the writer, director, and producer of those projects, you know, like, harder. They will carry on, and they will, you know, it will happen. And I think, you know, the backers of those projects, and you know, one of it's BFI and BBC, and one thing, you know, straight away when it was called that the project would shut down, it was the first thing, you know, both institutes said was, you have our backing, this is just going to happen another day. You know, there wasn't any anxiety about the funding being pulled, and it's like, well, look, we've got to, you know, take stock. There was none of that. It was always kind of, okay, we just have to replan for a better time, a better day. So yeah, but personally, I didn't none of my own projects.
Without naming names, I mean, are there financiers, I mean, who have, you know, actually absolutely kind of lost their nerve and withdrawn from the sector, or are maybe not as reliable for the foreseeable that you could have looked to before? Or is that not your experience? Is everybody still actively wanting to continue in this business?
From what I hear, I mean, it's not my experience, and the interactions I've had with quite a lot of financiers is they're all still in the projects they were in before. I think there's a lot of mainstays in the film industry, and by that I don't just mean the people in just in the UK, but the financiers from elsewhere who are investing in British films. I think from what I've heard, everyone has has stayed involved, hasn't ever backed out. I think there's going to be situations and companies who are going to feel the pressure of this of the pandemic, and so they're going to have to make tough decisions. But I haven't heard of those. I think overwhelmingly everyone has kind of acted incredibly responsibly and in support of all the projects that they've backed and go forward.
And so to kind of continue that, Ashanti, I assume you've been at kind of all the major film markets this year. You've been to AFM without getting to have cocktails outside Shutters on Santa Monica. Presumably you've been to Cannes, maybe you went to Venice. I mean, is everyone there? Is everyone there wanting to do business and producing projects? And are those projects different? Those packages, are they different to what you might have seen in the years before?
Yes and no. I have participated in all the markets this year, and I did attend Venice in person, which I felt really privileged and grateful to do, as it was a really nice sort of break, as it were, from everything that was happening, and they had great protocols in place. Hats off to the Venice team for being able to pull it off the way that they did. I think when all of this started and the discussions around Cannes and how would it happen were first happening, I think we were all really nervous. But seeing how Cannes sort of came together and went off really well, contained within a work week, sellers came with package projects to buy, Emancipation being the big one of the market, but also a lot of sort of mid-tier budgeted films as well. It felt like people were really just grateful that Cannes was even happening. And that kind of led to a little bit of an optimistic feeling, because I think we all felt, who knows what's going to happen in the future. Let's really engage and try and be as optimistic as we can. I think going into Toronto and then into AFM, it became quite apparent that the packages probably weren't as frequent as we would typically see in, a regular year for a film market. And that's really down to the kind of gridlock that's emerged with casting, particularly from the Americans, and just the backlog of projects, not just film projects, but TV projects that are really making everyone just pause, because nobody knows when they can schedule, who they can schedule, which is having a real knock-on effect for so many projects. So I think we had a good approach to the earlier markets, but we were quite quiet. We didn't acquire anything at Cannes. We didn't acquire anything out of Toronto. But AFM was much more buoyant for us. We came away with 2 projects, which we're really proud of, British projects as well. So I think it was all about just playing a little bit of, typical buyers. We wait, we see what we like. Is it still available? Is it not available? But we all felt that we had to be cautious during the markets, because there was just real uncertainty about when films could go. Is it worth investing a huge MG for projects that may collapse unexpectedly? But also that you're not going to be able to release the films physically in cinemas, potentially for another 6-month block. What does it do to the value, the commercial value of the project you've just pre-bought? So all of this in my mind.
So a couple of things to kind of unpack there. I mean, those titles that you bought in AFM, had you been tracking them for a long time, or were they kind of presented in Cannes, or are they this year basically? Were they kind of put together this year?
Yeah, one of the projects we had read slightly early on in its process, in its script process. The producers have kind of tipped it to us, so we were familiar with the project, but the package itself had been rejigged this year specifically, and was presented fresh at AFM. So I think we had a bit of a head start on that one because we knew the elements of the project, we knew the tonality of the script, but I think the way they put the package together was really what sold it to us, this market, and really felt like it was worth investing in. The second project was something that actually came together quite quickly, I believe over the summer of this year, but the producer had already shot something during the pandemic and, you know, had gone through the protocols with COVID insurance and things like that. So they're very solid producers. We've actually worked with them in the past. So we have the utmost confidence that this new project that we'll deliver in 2022 will be up to their high standards. But both of these projects were bought with a view to releasing them in 22. They're not going to be deliverable in 21. And that was, again, a real key factor in us pre-buying them, because we just feel like it's not prudent to be investing in content for 21 right now when everything still feels so up in the air. And we have a lot of production titles as well that we have to, you know, jiggle with our acquisitions titles as well. So it's about finding the right balance.
Are they proper films, or are they just like a very famous actor in a room doing a long speech?
No, it's not a pandemic themed film.
Okay.
These are proper cinematic films.
Are there a lot of those around? Are there at the market?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think the biggest shock for me has been watching the progression of the Michael Bay project Songbird, which was launched in Cannes. They brought a script, said it was Michael Bay producing, 80 million budget. It's going to shoot in LA. We were like, what? That sounds crazy. It will deliver for this year. We were like, no. They did it. They figured out how to do it. But now the question becomes, should they have done it? Because, you know, a bit of online backlash to the trailer initially. Do people actually want to see the pandemic depicted, fictionalized, given the Michael Bay treatment?
Absolutely. There was a comment on Deadline that said this is in such bad taste, it looks like Donald Trump is an executive producer. I mean, that's one to really look forward to. There's something you've mentioned there that I want to come on to, but just before that, I mean, how are you even acquiring films at the moment? You're talking about like 2022, but even trying to greenlight an acquisition, trying to make a P&L sheet work. What does that even look like? You know, you're clearly assuming that at some point box office hasn't gone anywhere, but you obviously need, you know, to be assured that box office is going to be operating at a competitive level for you to make your finances work. I'm assuming, or unless, is there a whole new formula that you've discovered this year about how to actually make your acquisitions stack up?
Sadly, no new formula has been discovered. I think what we've been doing is try to approach it in two minds. I mean, since the announcement about, you know, Universal and their PVOD deal, I think everybody's just been looking at the ways that a hybrid model might become a real eventuality in the UK. And it's very much on our minds about how we need to be adaptable to that change in the future. But I think for any acquisitions right now, it's really been about investing in genres that we feel are solid and really do have that kind of dedicated audience that will sort of rebound and return to cinemas a little bit more quickly. So I think when we're looking at these sort of acquisitions titles, it's very much about weighing, you know, what the genre is, what stories being told, but really, is this an audience that is going to turn out potentially without the vaccine? Are they going to hold back and wait? You know, you look at Grey Pound films, which used to feel so solid in the UK space, and they just feel incredibly risky to be taking a chance on right now. Dramas as well feel very hard to sort of invest in from a pre-buy perspective and run a P&L against, because it's just so hard to know how you can find audiences to come out to cinemas for films that maybe don't give them that kind of entertainment, escapist thrill in the cinema. And I think that's what people really want from content right now. They want to escape. They want to feel comforted, whether that be a horror, whether that be a comedy, whether that be a family animation. So I think we're trying to be quite savvy in that sense, in the ways that we look at acquisitions and the ways that we run our numbers. But it's all the same concerns that we would have had in any regular year, where we have to trust our gut, we have to trust our instinct, we have to really just respond to the material as it's presented to us and hope that the package is strong enough to make it commercial.
Bennett, are you quickly deleting all of your prestige drama packages from your slate? Oh no, I think Bennett's frozen now. Caroline, do you agree with what Ashanti's saying?
Yeah, it was. Sorry, the question about what types of films do people want to see next year in venues, I think, is a really, really good one. And I think there's an element where people do want to get back to normal. Oh God, they do want to sense that, going back, because that's part of the normal that they want to get back to and not leave behind. And when we kind of presented a concentrated version of what Broadway normally does when we were allowed to open, it did fine. That there are audiences out there, young audiences, older audiences too, festival audiences, etc. But next year we're going to be dealing with, still this. We're going to be dealing with Brexit. God knows what that's going to bring. So the words I'd like to be writing in the copy about films would be life-affirming, joyful, positive, diverse, humorous. It's those things, that I think that people are really gonna want to see.
And when you opened your door, Caroline, who? Obviously we've seen a growth of younger audiences, or they've been the first returners, as it were. Is that true of Broadway as well?
But that's true, but not exclusively. Summerland got an audience and people wanted it back. There were older audiences coming back too, that's kind of core regular audiences, but in smaller numbers. Wouldn't dream of putting on our incredibly popular silver screen slots. God, it's got to be post-vaccine. There's no way we can bring people together like that again, for quite a few months. But I think that people are definitely out there and definitely hungry for it. But also being very smart and, cautious too.
But that's so exciting, that finally, the films we've really always wanted to be seen getting made at the BFI, and I'm sure that you might well have had some frustrations, Ashanti, as an acquisitions person, of just having the same old projects kind of presented to you. That you can actually be slightly bolder now, in terms of, if you're a producer, the kind of material that you're chasing as an acquisitions exec. I hope that you might have slightly greater confidence of acquiring those titles as well, knowing that for now the silver screen slot at the Broadway is dead. There's more shows for you, and we've obviously had the example this year of and it's a shame Bennett's frozen for this. I hope we can get him back in of Mogul Mowgli, but also Saint Maud obviously becoming briefly the #1 film at the box office, which was a huge achievement. It must have been a massive boost for you as a company, Ashanti. So, do you have that confidence? Are you, you've alluded to the titles that you've acquired out of AFM, but in terms of what you're not buying at the moment. So I presume you are being slightly kind of wider, broader, struggling not to say exciting here, but you see what I'm saying?
I do, yeah, and I think. Studiocanal have always wanted to find the right balance between, the broad commercial titles that they've always done, the really big production titles like Paddington, with really interesting, dynamic, new voices through the smaller production titles that they've backed. I think from an acquisition standpoint, it's been really fun and interesting to see how the cultural conversation is feeding into the types of projects that I'm seeing available in the marketplace, but also that people are wanting to take more risks with the stories that they tell, particularly through British films, which I think is informed and influenced by what's coming out of the US, what's coming out of Asia, what's coming out of Europe, and just the creative ways that people are using genre, especially, to tell just really interesting, dynamic stories. And I think what I'm really excited about is using St. Maud as a great example of what we can do as a distributor with a low budgeted film, a debut feature, and how we can really be a good partner for any producers and directors out there looking to have their film distributed strongly, but also the ways that we can be inventive in the ways that we push the material out into the exhibition space and to audiences. We always want to feel like we're trying to push the conversation forward, because it can only benefit us all if there's more variety of films being seen to be successful in the UK. It just opens everything up again. You have more prompts to pull from when you're looking at future projects. So I feel like we have a part to play in that by actually doing the work of acquiring those films. But we also have to weigh that with the practicalities of, is it going to be commercial enough for us? You know, we're not Curzon, we're not Mubi. We do have a sort of slightly different brand identity and content strategy than other distributors. So we have to be cognizant of that. But I'm hopeful that I can be, you know, in my own small way, championing new voices, new talent, new stories, and hopefully we have another St. Maud in our hands in 6 months' time, a year's time, 2 St. Mauds, you know, as much as we can handle.
I mean, that's all well and good, Ashanti, but I think we do want Paddington 3 kind of as quickly as you can possibly deliver it.
Yeah.
Hurry up with that.
I would say it's not my department, but the message is received.
The nation needs you. You know, in terms, obviously, like, we're in such a specific time, which has allowed, you know, films like St. Maud to become #1. It's allowed films like 100% Wolf and Pinocchio to do close to, or if not over, £1 million. You know, the savvy distributors like yourselves have, you know, used this period to kind of elevate titles that would always be slightly maligned, I think, in the usual marketplace. And I mean, I've been getting incoming, and we're obviously in a bit of an existential moment as well in terms of what are the future of, you know, bigger operators and the more commercially minded independents in terms of their programming, because, you know, they know that they might not be, they can't be as reliant on the studios in the future. So, but what do you think? Do you think they will? I mean, in terms of a range of programming, you know, it's a nice thought that all of these films are going to always have a slightly more elevated moment in all these cinemas going forward. But I mean, do you think when things start to look more normal, we really are going to go back to normal?
Well, I was hoping actually that, you know, I really can't see the window opening up again. You know, we're looking at that from 70 days to 17 or something, the AMC deal that they did with Universal. It's never going to open up massively again. And I think that hopefully will leave more space in commercial cinemas for, you know, the St. Mauds and those sort of more indie films. I you know, that's my hope as well.
And I mean, are you excited to see, like, the cinema down the road that never usually shows the same films as you, Caroline, find them, or are you like
That's always happened? You know, we've got quite a number of cinemas, and in a way, that's always been cool. I've sometimes played commercial products in, you know, I'll play Paddington, you know, and a choice of, you know, the Star Wars movie, the must-see movie. I get to choose that. I'm delighted if they get to extend their choice, because I think they're great at getting young audiences. Commercial cinemas get the holy grail. You know what, we're all in our sector, we're like, oh, young audiences, they're just there. They spend the money and they get them. They speak loud enough. And so if people, young people, you know, take a chance on St. Maud in a multiplex that they might never have gone to see before, it's going to extend their, you know, range of film, make them more curious. And eventually they're going to find our sector and cinemas like us. So I think it's a good thing.
And we've obviously got to keep hold of that talent as well, because as Bennett mentioned, you know, the streamers are out in force. And I think this, you know, our industry, certainly the independent side of the industry, has always been quite philosophical about working with the streamers. But it's the talent drain, you know, that we want to ensure that we can continue to benefit from as well. I mean, obviously now that I'm, you know, basically middle-aged, I did watch The Crown last week, and you know, you see like, oh, there's Josh O'Connor, and Diana's played by that actor that we gave a break to in Misbehaviour, and so on. You know, there is like they're benefiting, and yeah, I hope that we can continue to do that as well. I haven't had any incoming to hear if Bennett is able to rejoin us or not, but I hope that's been able to, because I'd really like to bring him back into the conversation. I hope he's not just frozen for me. Is he frozen for everyone?
No,
he's still speaking.
He's still speaking?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, well, I can't see him. I'm so sorry, Bennett. Right, I'm going to throw some questions at Bennett then, and you guys, Ashanti and Caroline, you're going to have to tell me when Bennett has finished speaking to those questions, because this is really unhelpful. So, because Bennett's one of the rare producers this year who actually had a film play in full cinemas on a festival premiere back in Berlin, and then obviously as the year went on, things changed at every single moment for him. So going from, you know, a full traditional festival experience to then ongoing hybrid festivals, and then ultimately to a hybrid release pattern as well. So I just wanted to get Bennett's sense on kind of how, with that change, did potentially the audience change? I mean, obviously expectations changed, but coming to the end of it now, has that film, does he think, been able to reach and find a different audience than if it just stuck to a traditional path? And I say that as well because I feel like also Mogul Mowgli, certainly within the London Film Festival, was elevated in that at the moment I checked Twitter, it felt like every single person in the British film industry was watching Mogul Mowgli on the P&I screening at the time as well. So I'm hoping more people have seen it as a result. But what's Bennett's thoughts on that? And I'm sorry, I can't hear your response.
So this is for everyone but you, Ben. So, I mean, yeah, like it's been quite a journey, and it's not finished. So it will be interesting, you know, come the time we can dissect it and see how the audiences have changed from what we expected them to be. I think at the beginning, when we went into Berlin, you know, the onset of the, you know, pandemic was happening, so there was already a sense of you know, from distributors, from other buyers, that we were entering into slightly unknown territory, and you could absolutely get a sense of that, you know, during the festival and in our conversations with buyers. So the immediate response was great, and I think everyone was trying to be optimistic about what lay ahead. So, you know, as far as we were concerned, the festival strategy, we were hoping for, you know, kind of probably quite naive resilience from the other festivals, and that they would remain open so that we could have a more traditional festival run culminating in a theatrical release. So of course that didn't happen. We have been incredibly blessed and lucky that, you know, we've kind of reared our heads and, you know, like at the right time. So, you know, let me talk about the sort of post Berlin switch. So we were talking to a number of buyers and distributors from around the world, and then of course once cinemas and lockdown started to really, you know, take hold, particularly in the West, we saw that, you know, people were kind of they couldn't hold their nerves, they couldn't fulfill the offers that were on the table, and so what we were faced with was a decision to, what do? Do you either hold on to your film, and of course then it gathers a shelf life, or do you try to release it while the film is still urgent, still vital, still speaking to an audience who are engaged with its themes and ideas, or do you wait and hope that the world is kind of, like all those audiences are still going to be engaged in the same way? We talked about it a lot. We talked about it endlessly with distributors, and we came to the conclusion that we wanted to forge ahead. That we had, probably because of its size, because it was a smaller, like indie film that like had a core audience, and like in terms of who it might be speaking to in its specificity, but in terms of its universality and the style of the film, and a new filmmaker with a very bold vision. We thought, okay, like cinema goers, independent film lovers are going to seek this out, and certain communities are going to seek this film out. So we felt like they would want it, and there's the risk factor as well, of course. Both risk factors, both the actor and the MC. So we felt like that audience is going to try and find this film however we release it. So let's do that. So if we have to, pivot from theatrical, which then became the discussion, as in, can we find a distributor who is able to, release the film in the way that we had envisioned, which is, theatrically, but if necessary, pivot to a kind of digital release. So when we began talking to the BFI about that, it felt like, obviously they had the iPlayer. It was the festival is a separate thing, so it's not like you get picked up by BFI and then you're in a festival. But of course, once you're in a festival, the conversation is a lot more joined up. So, the opportunity of going with BFI, having the hybrid launch so that it was both online and theatrical, kind of felt like the best of both worlds. And then we were releasing a month later. Forgive me for misremembering these dates. In cinemas. I think we were able to stay open for just short of a week, but we had a conversation about, so Boris announced there would be a further lockdown, cinemas would close. I think that was going to be on a Thursday or a Thursday, I think it was. When that announcement came out on a Monday or Tuesday, we were all engaged in a conversation, and BFI presented a plan. And then we discussed that plan. By the next day, we cemented that plan, and by Thursday midnight, we were on the iPlayer, and also with Curzon Home Cinema. So we were able to pivot. In terms of how those audiences have seen the film, like, we'll find out. We had been, until I think this week, the #1 film on iPlayer for several weeks. Really, really good figures with Curzon Home Cinema as well. We haven't had the dissection of those audiences, and kind of viewing habits, which is, kind of, the data I really, really want to drill into, because it's as interesting. It's a new landscape for me. The point you made about the press and industry screening is amazing. I think because everything was online, because the traditional way of marketing a film, particularly a film like ours, you might kind of you'll have a discussion about splitting the physical marketing and the online marketing. Because of the world we now live in, it was like, let's just do online. Like, we might throw up a couple of posters in a few like key places, but essentially all of the conversation became about online in a way that I haven't experienced before as a producer. And so we were able to really concentrate on that. We also had a number of different, kind of spheres, and, like Riz is incredibly savvy in his online presence, and, kind of how he gets out there. And I think the culmination of all of that stuff, and the fact that people were watching the press and industry screening online, which means there's no cap on capacity. So I think, previously you might have one of those Soho screening rooms that, like 100 people or so. Whereas this, we had, more than 1,000 people, like logged in to watch the film, and at a specific window as well. It wasn't like they could just watch it leisurely throughout the day. They had to plug in at 9 or 11, I can't remember what it was, but like a 2-hour window, and thousands of people do it. And obviously we now live in an age where, there are there are so many reviewers and also just like people who want to talk about it. And also they're very savvy. They know that they want to get out first. So what happened was you had everyone coming out to screening and then everyone going online, or in some instances probably online the minute they finished the screening and talking about it. So excuse me. At that point, we started trending on Twitter, which is, you know, a new experience for anything that I've been involved with. And I think that showed us that there was a new tool, or rather a new power that we could bring to a tool that existed before, but we just hadn't concentrated our energies in. And it was, it was a hugely exciting moment. I'm trying to think, like, it coincided with something that happened in the States, and it was like, you know, Trump was trending higher than us at the time, which is usual. But just to kind of have that power, and then of course what you then have is you have this huge exposure and marketing momentum, which means you can keep building. And unlike the physical, presence of a film, you know, we were able to kind of like update our digital assets all the time. Now, of course, now that we're back in a world where we can start to put the film out there, obviously having a partner like BFI means that with the South Bank, we can re-release the film physically, which again is a huge draw. And you can see, you know, we saw in the London Film Festival screenings and following screenings that particularly in London, people were coming out to the cinema. You know, there was a genuine desire for people to see this particular film, and there were other offerings. There was a genuine desire to see this particular film. And you know, some of those communities are very obvious, but from my experience and from the few places that I saw at, it was, people want to get out of the house, and I think that's why cinema will always exist. People want to engage in different stories, and I think, you know, like I'm always drawn to bold filmmakers as a producer, and to people who really want to get into you know, like strong material, and look, there's a balancing act of like trying to present that in a commercial way, and then there's sometimes you have to give in to the kind of, look, this is a particular type of filmmaking, a particular type of film that's trying to say a very, you know, particular type of thing, and it has both specificity and universality, but you can't always Trojan horse that into a genre. So you just have to embrace that thing that it is and go, okay, does it have an audience? And I think that's all, you know, like you don't want to be self-indulgent and just make a film for the things that you want to say. You want to connect with it. And so in making this film and in the journey that we've had, you know, we've been able to kind of pivot a very, very difficult landscape, but only because there are people from the very beginning who wanted to see the film. And so what I've learned through this whole thing is you just have to find ways to give your audience the film. And I think, you know, from my point of view, I would love to see a much more open conversation about hybrid releases. And, you know, we've had a film that started theatrically, or started as a hybrid, and went theatrical, then online, and is now going back into a hybrid situation. I love that, because some people are desperate to go back to the cinema, and they'll have that moment. Some people just want to, you know, quite rightly hunker down and watch films from the comfort of their home, and they've also got that opportunity, rather than kind of, you know, the oh, I'll wait, and then you lose your appetite for something. I've probably gone miles away from your original conversation, Ben. So I'll let Caroline and Ashanti tell you about finished now.
Ben, yeah. Can you hear? Yeah.
I can. I just want to give out a shout out to whoever's doing the captions, because it's getting me through this, so I can keep up with what Bennett's got, what he's got to say. I mean, it's not good for your heart, Bennett. You know, this whole year you must have been stressed to hell. And on top of that, you've launched a production company as well. So I just wanted to get your sense. I mean, how's that been? You know, when drawing up a business plan in this climate, what does that even look like right now? You know, you talk then about actually hybrid models. I mean, I'm sure as a producer, you're not going to just focus on one thing. But can you give us a sense of, as a new production outfit, and I have to say a very exciting production outfit. What do you hope the future holds for you, and what is the direction of travel for Home Team?
Thank you. I'm struggling to find the word that will make it more exciting, because I think, you know, we're doing what we know how to do, but with a particular focus. So when you talk about the business plans for it, I think that you know, like, again, it's been like, it's really hard to say this, because I think, you know, like, this has been a very, very difficult and tragic year for many people. But I think for us personally, we've been blessed. We've had this opportunity, which was cooking before this happened, before the pandemic, you know, like really took hold. So we went in, and again, we had, you know, our backers, as soon as the lockdown happened, you know, just reassured us that we absolutely want to do this, and our planning hasn't really shifted from, you know, look, we're right now we're developing a lot of exciting projects both in film and TV, you know, with a view to shooting them when we can. Of course, it's, you know, we will find a way to shoot them if, you know, it sounds like I'm hopeful that the situation is going to change, and that there will be a kind of, you know, we'll be able to go back about our day-to-day businesses in the way that we want to. But we're also aware that, you know, kind of that situation might carry on for a little bit longer. That doesn't affect what we do. If it carries on for longer and we have to, you know, like, bring in the COVID safety measures, then we'll go ahead and shoot. So in terms of our business plan, it's the same. It's the same model exists. I think what we, like many people, I think what we've done is we've taken a culmination of our own experiences, you know, both personally and professionally. We have brought together the culmination of all of our relationships with talent and with the wider industry in terms of, you know, like distributors, buyers, financiers, commissioners, and we've gone, look, this is what we want to do. And, you know, I think there's been, you know, Caroline touched on this. I think there's been a moment where we have, like, never before, certainly not in my generation, been able to just kind of like have a bit of stillness and a bit of like thinking, right? And not that stillness has allowed necessarily new thoughts to come in, but I think certainly for myself and Dominic, you know, my partner at Home Team, we've been emboldened to be able to kind of see the shift in a lot of people's perspectives, see the desire and the need, and the economic value to tell stories, to tell a wider breadth of stories, to tell stories of communities and people that don't get to tell their stories. It's also bringing a lot of variety to audiences. So we've seen that, and you know, this isn't a kind of cynical, opportunistic thing. This is something that we really believe in. But at the same time, there's a huge amount of commercial value in it, and so we've you know, this is the culmination of where we are as filmmakers, but also, you know, kind of where the world is. And so you know, I don't like the sort of phrase perfect timing, but we've got an opportunity to be able to put together the company that we have put together, and to kind of really back the talent that we want to back, and tell stories that you know, deserve, need, and have value to be told. So we're excited, pretty excited. Sorry, Ben, I'm finished. You can put that in the captions. I can't see the captions. Sorry if I'm talking really quickly as well.
Thanks, Bennett. Yeah, I think it is perfect timing. I think you're much needed in the landscape. And just as a hot tip, in the chat that's been going on outside of this, everyone's talking about they've all been watching horror films. So if you haven't got any horror films on the slate, get on that, I think, as soon as possible. I also wanted to make clear as well that, you know, and not necessarily make clear, but draw to everyone's attention that I hope that a lot of the confidence that we're all feeling is because of obviously all the hard work that everybody's put in this year. You know, like we have worked with a variety of partners across the production sectors, including with PACT, to develop the COVID-safe, the COVID-safe production guidelines. The British Film Commission obviously put those together in consultation with us and PACT. We managed to get the production restart scheme from government. That's a £500 million basically insurance scheme. So hopefully Ashanti, that you can buy those films at AFM, because there is an insurance scheme in the UK that means that they will get completed as well. And obviously all the work that's going into ensuring that cinemas survive this period as well, so that there is still going to be something of an economy. But I think Bennett's right that hybrid certainly is the future, and certainly for the foreseeable as well, that you're going to have your own insurances around the economies of each individual film that you release. We're going to head into wrapping up, which is good news for me, because this has been extraordinarily difficult. But there is a question that has been put to us that, and again, it's a big question, but so each of you to answer it individually, please. But what's the one thing you've heard so far today that shaped your thinking about the future?
I would say that just that everybody is really pulling together and really trying their hardest to find practical solutions to what affects us all, because we're all interconnected in the ecosystem of the film industry. We need each other to survive. If one pillar falls, it's going to be that much harder for us, whether it be we can't get content because producers are finding it too difficult to get their films financed and made, but also from the other end with exhibitors and exhibition, if we have nowhere to show our films, So I think we wanted to sort of take this period just to reaffirm what we're trying to do from a business sense of how we can be better placed to be reactive in the marketplace to all of these changes coming through, but also how we can demonstrate that we are a strong continuing partner for people in the industry to come to. We are, a production company. We are financier through our other territories. We have multiple avenues and ways to distribute content, Canal Plus especially in France. So I would like, hopefully, for people to sort of look and think about Studiocanal as being a good partner that is in a really good position to sort of be a really strong partner as the industry is transitioning and changing in the future. Particularly as we do have a commitment to just supporting independently financed films and distributed films. We're fully committed to that in the theatrical space. And I think this period has only reinforced that we are a full theatrical distributor. But if there are opportunities to, bring in that hybrid model, we're going to try and be flexible as well.
That's great. Thanks, Ashanti.
I would say, I think the word blended has come up a lot, blended, hybrid, all of this. I mean, it's like you say, Ashanti, reinforcing trends that have already existed for a long time. Cinemas, venues have diversified so much in the last 10 years, where museums of film, where concert halls, where hospitality places, where colleges, we teach about them, where all of these things, we're all blended, and we're going to have to continue doing that to survive. But I was thinking, lots of people working from home now, like Bennett said, they're going to be desperate to get out and come to places like ours as well, seeing all the great product that you guys are producing and distributing.
And can I ask Bennett to answer that question as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to end on a hopeful note and a positive note, and I think like cinemas aren't going anywhere, and like everyone wants to see good films, but not only do they do that. Like I had an experience. This is not film, but I had an experience when cinemas started to show sports. It was like I couldn't wait to go and watch a game in the company of lots of people that wanted to watch the game as well, and it was such a unique, beautiful experience. And I think people want to have a shared experience. Like we all like to have a lazy sofa day and watch TV and watch films on TV and do that. But there is nothing like going to the cinema to watch a film or to share an experience. And it's because of that, like we don't go there to sit in the dark on our own and watch a massive screen. I think we generally go there to to have a shared experience with lots of people. So it's not going to go away, and it's about how we pivot. We've had an incredibly resilient response to this in ways that many industries can't, you know, and the fact that we have these conferences, there's been loads of task forces, lots of coming together, you know, just shows how robust and brilliant this industry is. So, you know, it's going to go on, and people are going to want to go to cinemas to watch the great, you know, like films and other content that's put on. So, you know, I can't wait to be part of that, and I can't wait to serve that. A deafening silence. Oh, he's actually going to write.
Ben's got a delayed reaction.
Delayed, sorry. I would disagree with Bennett. I only go to the cinema to be there by myself, and for once my family is nowhere near me. I've got no one touching me. I mean, this. I wanted.
Family purpose.
I thought this was going to be quite business and quite kind of maybe touch on the political, but you know, we can't dissociate from what an emotional year it's been in general, and you know, and I think there is a kind of overwhelming feeling. I've certainly felt it, and I've talked about this a lot over the last few years, because you know, my start in this industry compared to where I am now, it's an industry that, you know, has changed dramatically, and that is one that actually supports each other. You know, it's partnerships. We want to see other people succeeding. So I think that idea of, you know, I wouldn't mind ending on what does the future hold. You know, we're already starting to build towards this model of partnerships anyway, and I think we absolutely need to just continue with that, because we know that there's not one way of doing things anymore. If there is, by and large, that way was probably the wrong way of doing things anyway. We need other people. We need the support of other people, and we need to, and we ourselves need to support other people. So, if there's anything I'm going to take out of this that we're all talking about for the future, it's partnerships and working together on that. So, so let's leave it there. I think that would be great. So, I'd like to thank everyone, and apologise also for technical issues, but and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
David.
Cheers. Thanks, Ben.